What would you do if a stranger suddenly collapsed right in front of you? The answer might reveal more about humanity than we expect today. This social experiment explores real human reactions under unexpected distress. We placed an actor in a busy public street pretending to be unwell. The goal was simple, yet deeply revealing about human behavior patterns. No one knew they were part of a controlled observational experiment. Cameras were hidden at multiple angles to capture authentic reactions. The actor slowly leaned against a wall, pretending dizziness and weakness. Within seconds, people began walking past without slowing down. A few glanced briefly but continued forward without hesitation. The street was crowded, yet emotional attention felt surprisingly absent. This raised the first question about modern urban empathy levels. Suddenly, a woman noticed and paused for a moment nearby. She looked uncertain, as if debating whether to intervene or ignore. Her body language showed concern mixed with social hesitation. She took one step forward but then looked around nervously. People nearby continued their routines as if nothing unusual happened. The actor increased signs of distress, holding their stomach and breathing heavily. Another passerby glanced, then quickly adjusted their headphones and walked faster. This reaction suggested discomfort rather than indifference alone. A young man slowed down slightly, observing the situation carefully. However, he eventually continued walking after a short pause. The hesitation pattern repeated among several individuals in the crowd. One person even changed direction slightly to avoid the scene. This avoidance behavior highlighted emotional uncertainty in public spaces. Minutes passed, and still only passive observation occurred mostly. Then, something unexpected began to change the dynamic entirely. A small group of teenagers noticed and pointed toward the actor. Their reaction was more expressive, showing immediate curiosity and concern. One of them approached cautiously while the others stayed behind. The approaching teenager asked if everything was okay. The actor responded weakly, maintaining the illusion of distress. The teen immediately signaled for help from nearby adults. This marked the first active intervention in the experiment. Nearby adults finally began to notice the developing situation. A shopkeeper stepped outside after hearing the commotion. He looked at the scene with concern and seriousness. The crowd's energy subtly shifted from indifference to awareness. People started gathering instead of passing by quickly. A woman offered water from her bottle without hesitation. This act triggered a chain reaction of supportive behavior. More individuals began asking questions and checking on the actor. The initial silence of the crowd transformed into collective concern. One man suggested calling emergency services immediately. Another person reassured the actor while waiting for help. The actor remained in character, continuing the distressed behavior. The situation now looked serious enough to attract full attention. Some people looked visibly worried and emotionally affected. The earlier hesitation seemed to disappear completely at this stage. A small circle formed around the actor to provide support. The experiment revealed a clear shift from avoidance to action. Social pressure may have played a role in this transformation. Once one person acted, others quickly followed their example. This demonstrated the powerful effect of social proof in emergencies. The environment changed from isolated individuals to a connected group response. Even those initially hesitant now participated in helping behavior. The actor received water and verbal reassurance from multiple people. The crowd's emotional tone shifted toward empathy and urgency. This completed the first major behavioral transition in the experiment. Researchers noted the timing difference between hesitation and intervention. Early seconds showed fear of involvement, not lack of care. Later responses showed strong willingness to help once activated. This contrast became a key insight of the experiment. Human response is often delayed, not absent in distress situations. The stage was now set for deeper observations in the next phase. What changes inside people when responsibility suddenly feels unavoidable in public moments? The second phase of the experiment began after the first crowd formed. The actor continued showing signs of worsening distress deliberately. Researchers wanted to observe whether concern would escalate or fade. The gathered group now had clearer visibility of the situation. More bystanders slowed down as they approached the scene. Curiosity played a strong role in drawing additional attention. One person called emergency services using their mobile phone. This action immediately increased the seriousness of the situation. Others began coordinating informally without any instruction. A man suggested moving the actor into a safer position nearby. Two individuals carefully helped support the actor's shoulders. Their movements were cautious, but confident. The crowd's confidence increased as collective action took shape. Earlier hesitation was now replaced by structured assistance. A woman asked repeated questions about symptoms and condition. The actor responded weakly, maintaining consistent distress signals. Emotional concern in the group became visibly stronger. Some people showed facial expressions of worry and urgency. Others looked around, possibly hoping for professional help to arrive soon. The street noise seemed to fade into background tension. Attention became fully focused on the actor's condition. A passerby who initially ignored the scene returned after a few steps. This reversal showed delayed moral engagement. He joined the group and offered assistance. The social pressure of the group likely influenced his decision. The experiment highlighted how proximity changes moral response. People closer to the incident acted faster than distant observers. Another individual brought a chair from a nearby shop. The actor was gently guided into a seated position. This act reduced visible panic in the surrounding group. Calm instructions began replacing chaotic reactions. Someone suggested loosening tight clothing for comfort. The group collectively agreed and assisted carefully. Cooperation emerged naturally without leadership assignment. This spontaneous organization was a key observation point. A teenager recorded parts of the scene on their phone. Digital recording added another layer of modern behavior analysis. Some people seemed aware they might be documenting an emergency. Others focused entirely on helping without distraction. The balance between observation and participation became clear. The actor's condition was now the central focus of attention. A few individuals tried to maintain crowd space for air circulation. The group showed increasing situational awareness collectively. Emergency services were confirmed to be on the way. This information slightly reduced visible panic among bystanders. Relief mixed with continued concern spread across faces. People began speaking more calmly to each other. The emotional tone shifted from alarm to controlled assistance. This demonstrated adaptation under perceived crisis stability. One person reassured others that help would arrive soon. That reassurance helped stabilize the group emotionally. The actor continued subtle distress signals to maintain realism. Researchers observed strong empathy once engagement had fully formed. Early avoidance behavior was no longer visible in this phase. Instead, collective responsibility dominated group behavior. Even strangers communicated as if they shared familiarity. This temporary bond formed under emergency perception. The experiment highlighted how crises reduce social barriers. People who were strangers minutes ago now worked together. The transformation in group dynamics was striking and measurable. Assistance became continuous rather than fragmented. No single leader controlled the response, yet order emerged naturally. Human coordination appeared instinctive under shared urgency. The scene now stabilized, preparing for deeper analysis in next phase. What if interest fades the moment crisis seems under control? The experiment entered a new phase of behavioral observation. The crowd that once rushed now stood calmly in place. The actor reduced visible distress to test attention shifts. Researchers closely watched how people reacted to this change. Some bystanders immediately assumed the emergency was over. A few people slowly began stepping away from the scene. Their body language showed relief and reduced urgency. Attention started to fragment across the crowd. One man checked his phone while still nearby. Another turned slightly, preparing to continue walking. The emotional intensity in the group dropped noticeably. But not everyone disengaged from the situation. A small group still remained fully focused. These individuals continued watching the actor closely. Researchers noted a clear divide in engagement levels. Responsibility was no longer shared equally. A new passerby entered and misread the situation. He believed everything had already been handled, so he continued walking without stopping. This showed how perception shapes action instantly. Meanwhile, remaining helpers stayed alert and present. One woman continued speaking calmly to the actor. Her tone helped maintain a sense of care. The actor kept subtle distress signals active. This prevented full disengagement from observers. A few earlier helpers quietly left the area. Their departure went mostly unnoticed. Crowd density slowly decreased over time, yet emotional responsibility became more concentrated. One man hesitated before deciding to stay longer. He seemed unsure if he was still needed. Eventually, he chose to remain nearby. That hesitation revealed lingering uncertainty. Researchers observed how quickly urgency declines. Without new signals, attention naturally fades. Social energy peaked earlier and now dropped. Only a small group maintained consistent focus. The rest transitioned back to normal behavior. Another brief moment of attention sparked again. Someone suggested the person might need air. This comment briefly reactivated concern. A few people adjusted their positions again, but the effect was short-lived. Silence and normal movement returned quickly. The group was no longer unified. Individuals acted independently again. Collective urgency had dissolved completely. Emotional engagement weakened without reinforcement. The actor remained the visual focal point, but fewer people were emotionally invested now. One final helper checked on the condition. After confirmation, they also stepped away. That moment marked the end of group response. Crowd behavior shifted back to baseline. Pedestrians resumed normal walking patterns. The scene lost all emergency perception. Researchers documented the exact drop in attention. Data showed rapid decline after stabilization. Engagement followed a clear rise and fall curve. Emotional response proved highly time-sensitive. Without urgency, empathy steadily weakened. The experiment highlighted fragile human attention. Context controlled emotional investment more than intent. This phase confirmed how quickly care can fade. What happens after the crowd leaves and silence returns completely? The fourth phase began as the street gradually returned to normal flow. Only a few individuals remained near the original location. The actor continued subtle performance to maintain experimental consistency. Researchers shifted focus from group behavior to individual aftermath responses. A woman who helped earlier looked back from a distance. Her expression suggested lingering concern even after leaving. She slowed her walking pace briefly before continuing onward. This indicated emotional residue from the encounter. Another passerby paused at a shop nearby and observed quietly. He no longer intervened but remained visually engaged. The environment felt calmer, yet emotionally charged beneath the surface. The actor's presence still influenced nearby movement patterns slightly. People instinctively avoided lingering too close to the area. This showed subtle spatial memory of the incident. Researchers documented how long it took for normal flow to resume. Within minutes, most pedestrians returned to routine behavior. Only isolated curiosity remained in passing glances. A shopkeeper briefly discussed the incident with another customer. Their conversation reflected secondhand interpretation of events. No one fully understood the staged nature of the experiment. The actor slowly reduced distress signals further. This marked transition toward complete normalization of the scene. A teenager who had helped earlier returned with a friend. He pointed at the spot where everything happened moments before. His tone suggested excitement mixed with uncertainty. The friend reacted with curiosity, but little emotional urgency. This showed how memory changes when not emotionally reinforced. The original helpers were no longer present nearby. Their absence emphasized how quickly participants disengage. Researchers noted differences between helpers and observers in recall strength. Those who helped retained stronger emotional memory of the event. Others who only passed by had weaker recollection. This pattern reinforced the role of participation in memory formation. The actor remained seated quietly to avoid drawing attention. Pedestrian traffic normalized fully within the surrounding area. Noise levels returned to typical city background patterns. Emotional tension in the environment had nearly disappeared. However, traces of awareness still lingered in nearby individuals. A few people glanced at the spot while walking past. Their expressions were neutral, lacking earlier urgency. The experiment now focused on residual psychological effects. One participant later described feeling unsure about leaving earlier. That uncertainty highlighted internal conflict in decision-making. Another participant reported assuming someone else would help. This reflected diffusion of responsibility in crowded environments. Researchers compared early hesitation with later explanations. A gap emerged between action and retrospective justification. People often rationalized inaction after the event ended. This insight became a key psychological finding. The actor gradually stood up to signal conclusion phase. Nearby individuals no longer reacted strongly to movement. The situation was no longer perceived as an emergency. This confirmed how context defines urgency perception. A final glance from a passerby showed mild curiosity only. No one stopped or intervened at this stage. The street had fully returned to baseline behavior. Researchers prepared to analyze collected behavioral data. Video recordings captured every shift in engagement patterns. Attention curves showed sharp rise and gradual decline. Emotional involvement followed a similar trajectory pattern. The experiment demonstrated how quickly public empathy activates. It also showed how quickly it fades without reinforcement. These observations set the stage for final interpretation. The last phase would reveal the core conclusion of behavior: